tuned in to Network Zero. Yeah. No,
it's like the whole Neuromancer intro. The sky was tuned to the color of a dead channel, which is a kind of dark grey, hissing, roiling mess. Whereas now that's actually just a bright blue sky. So it's that moment's gone.
Yeah. So I don't know. We'll think about that when we actually do the show. Maybe I might have a feeling for it. So, planning wise, I think we said the first show is kind of just Vampire the Requiem, second ed kind of overview and what we like about what's been changed in it, and kind of getting reacquainted with it. And I think that's something we'll mostly do for the next few, as and when the second editions actually come out. So we've got Werewolf, that's always good.
Yes. Promethean's coming out soon.
Yeah, Mage is round the corner. Changeling the Lost is in the works. So, yeah, I mean, some of these are kind of like, it's hitting them when we want.
What about, there are a couple that sort of fall between the editions, and that's Mummy and Demon. Are we going to cover those, or wait and see if they get a second edition?
Demon is worth covering because it uses the second edition rule set, so it's worth talking about. I have yet to run it, so
I've got the deluxe edition from the Kickstarter, but I too have yet to run it. I found, because I tend to play in World of Darkness games rather than run them at the moment, it's using the first edition of the rules, but there's a whole 70-page section that kind of updates those rules in places. Slightly daunting.
No, actually, Demon the Falling is... Demon the Descent is full second ed.
Okay.
Set. It's just the way the rules are presented now, because they don't put the rules up front. They put them towards the back, much like they've done with Requiem second edition. So they have a similar kind of format. So, yeah, I mean, Demon's worth talking about because I still don't really have an idea for what type of chronicle to run for it. There's things I like in there. I guess, Sam, you've not delved into it. You've got no clue on it. So you can always have a look at it and have a fresh eyes approach to it, to the concepts in there. And
I mean, what they said they were going for was a kind of cyberpunk meets Cold War conspiracy with kind of Gnostic elements thrown in on top. So maybe if we had a look at some of the source material they claim, like Tinker Tailor Soldier Spy, and how that might relate to it, could be interesting.
That's cool, because I mean, Demon, because it's second edition rules. Mummy's a weird one. Again, I have an idea for a chronicle for Mummy. Mummy is just... I have a love-hate relationship with. As in, I kind of like the concept. I like what's novel about it. So you can run a game where one person is the mummy, or the person that's playing the mummy is kind of a cyclic role, and everyone else is playing the cult. And also, because of where mummy fits as a theme, you can quite easily mesh it with vampire, like with the Mechets, because they have an Egyptian background, or with it easily slots in with Geist. Except some of the books for Mummy are, well, I say some of, one in particular I don't like out of the books for Mummy, and I find Mummy a bit jargon heavy because it's using a lot of Egyptian terms. So it becomes a bit impenetrable.
Mummy strikes me as the sort of game that would either be amazing or fall to pieces.
Yeah. It has aspects of like Highlander, obviously, because you're these immortal beings that come back every so often in that way, and their lives get caught up and wound up. But the difference is they're like Highlander with memory loss problems.
I think one of the issues with like games like that is that there's not, when people play it, there's not as much pop culture reference to go off to sort of draw from. Like,
Sure.
you know, like I say, with vampire and stuff and werewolf, they're like really accessible to people now because you can just think.
Well, and the other thing is a lot of the pop culture for vampire is built off a lot of the concepts.
Yeah, interestingly, yeah.
Or built off a lot of the concepts which first originate either in Anne Rice or in Vampire the Masquerade via Anne Rice.
Mm-hmm.
So it's like with all the clan symbols and everything. It's like we're having a masquerade, but it's not called a masquerade. You know, all that kind of stuff is in there. I mean, you only have to look at True Blood.
I'm sure we can talk about that.
We'll have acres to talk about that, and the originals.
Talk about that too.
If we go by who's working on that, it's Monica, and who else set Flames Rising? Who's her partner? I can't think of it right now. But yeah, they mentioned something recently about how the originals, who right now, whoever's Prince of the City is pretty much a knockoff of Vampire the Masquerade's first.
With the name,
New
and
Orleans
the
by
design
night,
and everything.
So that's amusing.
Full circle. I think we could probably do several episodes on vampire. It's the one that's got the most material related to it, and it's certainly the game I've had most experience with.
Same here. I mean, I think there's numerous flavors of vampire that Vampire the Requiem quite happily accommodates. So you've got the classic kind of Vampire the Masquerade kind of style, crushed velvet and trench coat wearing goth kind of vampire, but then you've it's also got elements in there which allow you to steer the game quite easily into different kind of moods and make it thematically quite different.
Yeah, I'm playing in a very long running now Chronicle set in New Orleans that's got a real film noir vibe to it, and a slight Memento-esque idea of it plays around with memory in interesting ways. So it might be quite interesting to maybe talk about the different kinds of vampire games we've got experience of, and the range of stories that it allows for.
Okay, that's cool.
With regards to Mummy, the thing that stood out to me is Planescape Torment, which is, to my mind, the best computer RPG to date. And that's very much based around the idea of you playing a mortal who wakes up on a slab, doesn't know who he is or where he is or what's happening, has tattoos on his back from previous versions of himself with various clues. People around the city remember him, but he doesn't remember them. So it kind of allows for a really interesting kind of narrative, but I think you have to give quite a lot of control over to the GM, and B, again, you get kind of slightly railroaded to do that, I think, properly.
I think that's something you've hit on with Mummy, and I think is sometimes how highbrow the games set themselves at, like how, because players, it depends how willing players are to play into the concept of the game rather than just play in the game.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
Yeah, it's the typical, I turn up and I'm a murder hobo, yay, fun. Let's go to Candy Mountain and kill everything and take all the candy. Or you allow yourself to be pulled into it and you recognize where, yes, this is bad for your character, but you do it anyway because A, your character doesn't know this crap, but you do, and B, it's by allowing bad stuff to happen, it pushes on the narrative and it pushes on the drama, and you will get some sort of narrative reward at some point, whether it's with that character or if they do die, you might have some access to a new character.
I like to make the bad decisions with my character because a lot of other people won't because they want to win the game. The concept of winning the game rather
Oh
than
God, yeah.
the story is we don't really work that way.
Well, the whole World of Darkness system, I mean, you can do, as a friend described, a sort of trenchcoat ninja figure, but that's not actually all that interesting and long-running story of just your character goes around getting into fights, looking stylish, but there's no substance to it. In the noir game, we actively are encouraged to play to our vices and kind of make mistakes, because that suits the narrative of the game, to sometimes not make the best decision, to act impulsively, but that creates a much more interesting narrative than just kind of metagaming it all the time.
Yeah. Cool. So I guess so. I did lay out what a general episode plan would be like. So with all these because we've got I think it's clear that we've got ideas of there's games that we're more familiar with and ones we're less familiar with, and there's ones that feel more accessible and some that feel less accessible. And with the second editions, it's also a good point at which to re-examine some of these games, because they've pushed themselves away from the first editions and also pushed themselves even further away from the classic World of Darkness. So,
I actually find the new edition of Werewolf far, far more interesting, with the kind of John Carpenter's Thing-esque, shape-shifting, amorphous monsters from the moon, I think.
Oh, the Idigan. They've always been in there.
They seem to have pushed them further into the narrative and make them more of a kind of central focus, a bit like the Strix.
The Idigan were first properly detailed in Night Horrors, Wolfsbane, and the things which we hit upon, which is better in Werewolf. So Werewolf the Forsaken had a holdover from Apocalypse, which was the whole werewolves shouldn't mate together or any of that weirdness, because it will create a true metis or whatever in Apocalypse, and in this one it would create what was it, Ghost Child or something, which was basically a spirit, a wolf spirit would be the creation of some intermingling, and it wouldn't actually have flesh and everything. It'd be a mad kind of spirit creature. So they got rid of all that in second edition Forsaken, just to A, make it less like Apocalypse, and B, just to remove that annoyance that werewolves can't have any form of romantic interest with each other.
It sounds like a good change.
Yeah, it is a better change. I mean, Werewolf the Forsaken, what I have run of it is really good, and I would like to run it again. Again, it's kind of a different game to Vampire, in the sense that I would say the game which is most similar to how Forsaken works is kind of like actually Kingdom Death, because you're a group of characters who are managing their land. And so really you need a group of players that are interested in farming, basically. But they're farming the spirit world and the real world, and creating the balance and all that. So many of the plots are more emergent, whereas other plots you would have to have a very organic setting that has emergent plots and also plots that, as a GM, you've threaded through, initiate gameplay in case the players go, oh no, what do I do now? Which is always a big problem.
Yes, whereas it sounded like Apocalypse is. It sounded like Apocalypse was far more a kind of global. I never played it, but it sounds like a much more global battle for the spirit of the world, with the Fomori and those kinds of very much on a not quite cosmic, or maybe cosmic scale, whereas this sounds a lot more personal.
Yeah. Werewolf, Sam? Because you've not played it yet. But...
no, I was going to mention that movie we watched the other night.
Oh.
The one with Lou Taylor Pucci in it.
Spring.
Yeah. That was a really interesting... We couldn't really work out what it was. We thought she was a werewolf at first, and she was actually like a shapeshifter.
Yeah.
Ancient shapeshifter. I think, we were wondering what kind of category to put that in, whether that was a werewolf category or changeling or something. I don't know.
It fits in quite well, possibly, with Beast.
Yeah.
Because the concept in this film, Spring, character had kind of, to me, once you kind of realise what the character's like and the backstory, it had, to me, it had linked, it seemed more like, I think the mythology they were kind of like building up seemed more like, Echidna, the mother of monsters from Greek mythology. Yeah.
I have to say, of all the New World of Darkness lines, Beast, for some reason, just hasn't clicked with me in terms of as something that sounds particularly appealing.
It got a lot of flack because it seemed to like make the idea that being it seemed rather othering in weird ways, and yet also like that being the bad guy and the bully was the best thing. So it had some themes and some ideas in there which didn't translate well into the written word. So they went back and changed stuff, but I don't know how much. I still backed it. I still got it turning up because it'll mostly be a great antagonist book, really.
Yeah, it's just the whole concept of that you're human, but you're actually, you've got human form, but you're linked to a primordial archetype, and you have a lair and what have you. It felt as though it was kind of taking fantasy tropes, and I know going back to Beowulf, but then inserting it into the kind of urban horror of the World of Darkness. It just seemed a bit jarring. I'm willing to be convinced otherwise, but that was my first impression from everything I've read about it and listened to.
Promethean I've not run.
I have all the books from first edition. I have a chronicle that I was designing, and then my PhD work went into overload and it went on the back burner. And it'd be interesting to see with second edition, because for me, and I've seen quite a few people on the Onyx Path forum say that they love Mary Shelley's Frankenstein, they love the atmosphere of Promethean, but the whole notion that you have to become human as opposed to potentially not turning into an out-and-out monster, but perhaps trying to retreat from humanity, or at least find some way of kind of existing in the world, seems to be less open in second edition. It seems to be much more focused on there's a specific path that all Prometheans will follow, and that is to go from the Promethean state, which I think has been likened to being on fire, to becoming human. And it feels a little like, I don't know, I mean, with regards to if your entire experience of the world is being really horrendously mistreated by humans, that wanting to become a human, whilst that is understandable for some, surely there'll be a fairly large percentage who wouldn't want to have anything to do with humanity. So it'd be quite interesting to see how they handle that and do it in such a way that doesn't feel as though there's only one way to play it.
I do have ideas for running Promethean, or at least I think it would be like a road trip across Europe because it's got the whole thing with disquiet and like the typical wherever you go, there's always the local villagers with pitchforks wanting to chase you out.
Yes. I think it's definitely a game that benefits from. I don't know. The Walking Dead might be quite a good comparison if you replace zombies with humans, but they have a similar kind of effect that you find somewhere, you settle down, but eventually the zombies will find a way of breaking in. You'll have to move on.
I'm trying to think. Is there not, in some respects, with Penny Dreadful? Because obviously it's got Frankenstein's monster in there.
Yes.
Because it's such a collection of other immortals in there. Are there not could potentially Dorian Gray fit into kind of the Promethean archetype?
Possibly.
He would be the I'm trying to remember the name, the kind of disquietingly beautiful Galateans, and that the kind of horror for them is that people become completely obsessive about them and will kind of throw their career and family away and commit suicide to try and get their affections, or they feel they've been rejected by them. So it's a kind of very different horror to the Frankenstein's creature being beaten off with sticks for saving a child.
Anything more to say on that one, Sam, about Promethean? I
don't know a lot about it, so...
Yeah, so you're a creature, well, I'll say humanoid, it's easier, that's made from body parts or from dead people, brought to life by some means, either by another Promethean that's somehow that breathes life into you with this primordial, this
divine fire.
Divine fire, that's the word I was looking for. This divine fire, like that is this inherent energy within the universe. But while you're alive, you're essentially a living crucible for the creation of a soul. So this works into how Mike and I view World of Darkness, as each game is a viewpoint on what the soul, saying something about the soul, whereas like Vampire is the soul that's been kind of broken and corrupted. Werewolf is a soul that's actually a duality of things, because it's not really, you're not fully human. You're actually a werewolf. You're actually a wolf soul in a human body. And like Mage is the human soul unleashed, because you can command magical powers that can change the world. And Promethean is you're trying to become human. And then so basically it's like each of the Prometheans represents each of the cosmic elements, so earth, air, fire, water, and spirit, nothingness, void, whatever. And there's a few other ones in there, like the nuclear Prometheans, who are linked to the element of, well, I say element, but to nuclear energy. So they're really cool because it's like they're a modern type of creature. So
there was going to be a nuclear Promethean in my chronicle. They're absolutely fascinating, and their appearance is far more gruesome, I think, than any of the others. Some just perspire blood. Others look like the flesh has become tumoured through this constant. If they're all supposed to be driven by fire, these seem to be almost burning up. Very, very interesting.
So the thing with Promethean is then you're kind of like, because people fear you, is you're constantly moving on, and the whole point originally, because I mean is that every time that Prometheans kind of like have a language that they leave behind, kind of like homeless people, traveler language. So when they go from place to place, they might glean some information from what's been left behind to lead them to another stage to how they can become humans. So between the player and the GM, you have to establish milestones which lead your character to become potentially more human.
Mm-hmm.
So there's a lot of body horror in the game because Prometheans pretty much sum up flesh doing weird shit. But also there's kind of the highbrow element of what does it mean to become to want to become human, or do you, as you say, David says, like, do you want to become human in the first place? If you see enough horrors of humanity, why would you want to be one of them? But I think that's where Promethean is being human the things that you see humans do, or is it something more fundamental in a metaphysics point of view to do with the soul and, you know, your existence in the universe and persistence beyond the momentary life that you have?
Because again, it reminds me a little of if I go on about Planescape Torment too much, then I apologize. But in that, the whole the kind of philosophical question at the core of it is what can change the nature of a man. And I am very interested in the philosophical aspects of it. Sounds like the new edition, they're going to emphasize the alchemy that was always there in the past, and that's going to be a far more foregrounded. So there'll be alchemists as potential antagonists, humans who are trying to study Prometheans.
Yeah, because there was never so Prometheans could also be created by humans by weird ways and in a non-repeatable manner often.
Is it?
Yeah.
I'm trying to remember. Was it a demiurge who created them, and then you've got the progenitor of the line, who then Prometheans create other. So the demiurge creates the progenitor, and then the progenitor creates the first of their line, and they then persist. And to become human, one of the milestones that had to happen is that you have to create another Promethean. So if you want to become human, you have to create another creature as tormented as you've been, and live with the consequences
of your sins in a way, isn't it?
Yeah, it's again, I think you add that into the equation. So not only have humans made your life a living hell, but you've got to create someone else who's going to go through all the horror you've experienced for the sake of you gaining humanity. So it's quite a big ask, really.
So yeah, that's Promethean. So, like I said, you can see why I've not run it yet, because you kind of need the right group.
I'd be up for it. Maybe we could do something online.
Yeah. Changeling's easy to talk about. Changeling's like a walk in the park.
Yes,
relatively speaking.
I'm about to start playing in a Changeling Chronicle. I know you've got loads of experience with it.
Yeah, Sam, Changeling, you have opinions
about what?
About it as a game compared to, say, Vampire, because most people's base point of role playing World of Darkness is either Vampire, more or less, it's going to be Vampire or Werewolf or Mage, because those are the big three. But Changeling is like one of the gems of New World of Darkness, because it kind of made Changelings not the cutesy fantasy beings that they were in Old World of Darkness, because Changeling the Dream does nothing for me.
No, I was going to say it just looks appalling.
But people are obsessed with it, like completely madly obsessed with it. So
Chig's a big fan, isn't he?
Yeah. So Sam, Changeling for you, what does it do for you that's different to Vampire? Because Vampire's, like I said, is the obvious point of call for people.
Sorry, I'm yelling at somebody about Hanagram.
So. Oh.
It's Anna, actually, I'm yelling at.
Yeah, she's fawning over the slash art book, isn't she?
Yeah, and I don't think it's a very good idea. But she was like, that's what the show is about, though. And I'm like,
Hannibal's just about Hanagram.
Okay then.
Some people.
Like, I love Hannibal so much, but you know.
Yeah, there's only 2 seasons.
Yeah, there's not 3.
So yeah, Changeling. Have you ranted now? Have you done that response?
No. Please continue without me, and I'll get back to
We'll get back to Changeling.
Okay.
Let's think. Geist, I have an idea for a chronicle for that one. Geist, I think, from every Geist has to be run in a. Geist is basically a police procedural where your witnesses are the dead.
Okay.
That's the best way I can consider that you would run it, and then that means anything that is dead, ghostly, that is very powerful is not your typical ghost. So the typical ghost if you were playing a World of Darkness Mortals game and there was a haunting at a house, that's a pretty, big deal. Like, the characters have to deal with that and somehow survive the encounter or understand it and let the ghost move on to the other side properly. Whereas for Geist, I think, going into a haunted house is a pretty day-to-day occurrence for them. So those type of ghosts and are the things they interact with to enable them to deal with the bigger problems that actually do exist.
Yeah, to be honest, outside of Vampire, the lines that really appeal to me are all the ones that are considered very, very difficult to run. It's Promethean, Demon, Mummy, and Geist. I love what I've heard about it. I've heard there's also a lot of problems from people who have run it, and that there's apparently a gigantic errata for the Geist core book. Yeah,
the Geist core book got a true basically got I think a POD reprinting, so it's got a 1.1 edition.
Okay. Do we know if that's getting a second edition or?
I don't know when it will. It mostly will, like all of them.
Because I'm really, 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 really interested in Deviant the Something, which was described on the RPG.net forums as being David Cronenberg the game. And for me, I instantly sign up to that. It's supposed to be a lower power. You're above hunters, but below everything else. And that the main antagonists are human corporations and basically people who are experimenting. So elements of, I guess, Resident Evil and scanners, those kind of video driven.
It's kind of like a psionics kind of.
Yeah, but more fleshy. So the powers are kind of. It's very much about body horror, but it's kind of. Whereas I guess Promethean is a kind of eerie quality, and the Pandorans definitely have body horror elements. They kind of and the Centimani. Whereas this is the body horror is your body. So they mentioned Akira. So the end of Akira with the body growing and crushing the people inside it. Those kinds of you've lost. I think the idea is like Demon, but much lower powered. That you can kind of blow out if you absolutely have to. Whereas in Demon, that draws the attention of the God Machine. In Deviant, you just lose control of your body, and so whatever your powers are will be incredibly destructive, but you're not going to be able to control exactly what it does. So that sounds really interesting.
Okay, yeah. At least it won't be that fan-made thing, Genius the Transgression. That was a pile of crap. It was just such Mary Sue writing. It basically wanted to be mage, but not mage, but steampunk. Without being steampunk somehow. And it was just such nonsense. Offered nothing. And that's always the problem when fans try and make their own World of Darkness add-on and try and big it up. It's like, no, you kind of missed the point somewhere along the lines here.
Someone, I think on the Onyx Path forum, there's a Leviathan, the cult, which I've looked at a little bit. But I mean, to be honest, there are more World of Darkness official game lines than I'm going to probably have a chance to run in the next 10 years.
Exactly.
So I'm not particularly bothered about a fan made product that's not going to go through the same play testing and have the same caliber of writing.
Hunter's an interesting one. Anything to talk about that, because there's so many. That book covers so much, and conceptually, like, what is a hunter?
So the Chiron group might be one of the antagonists for Deviant, the whatever, which is one of the first crossover. So one of it's potentially a player group, or it could be an antagonist, but they graft the supernatural to humans, and they could be potentially one of the antagonists. I'm really interested in it from as someone who researches about serial killers in popular culture with Slasher.
Slasher's a great book.
And second edition, I've heard, is going to be Hunter the Vigil. I think it's the Slasher Chronicles. So that's the thing they're going to emphasize, which I think is exactly it's by far the most interesting aspect of it.
I think, again, Hunter is an easy one to really jump into, because, again, the point of reference, the pop culture references are there.
You've got X-Files to Supernatural. Potentially, if you want to go a bit more low key, Twin Peaks could have an element of it. With the
it's a good book, and it's got some nice ideas in there. I haven't read the most recent what was it? Unnatural Enemies, was it Mortal Remains?
I do actually have a copy of that. I read it for the Promethean section, because I was going to have the Chronicles going to start with an attack on the group by some hunters armed with Molotov cocktails, given their tendency to, I think they get aggravated damage from fire.
Something like that, yeah. So, I think there's a more recent one which obviously adds how hunters deal with demons and so forth. And, like, again, there's tons of books. There's different books with demons. Like, some of my favorite books, World of Darkness, there's Second Sight, which is a good one. Inferno, which is, because Second Sight allows you has like the back of that more kind of like Cthulhu kind of style cults, whereas Inferno is like demons that are to do with the vices, and then you've got demons. What type of demons am I thinking of?
From Mage.
Mage. Then you've got the Akamoth and the something else, and then you've got wherever the Quishilum fall into, because you've got the whether they're there to cause order or chaos. And then
angels to some, demons to others.
And then you've got the angels and demons from Demon of Descent, who don't even know how to deal with the Quishilum. They're like on a completely different scale. That's because I think that whatever the divine power is behind Prometheans is like the wild energy, whereas the God Machine is like the Weaver in classic World of Darkness. So,
yes. I think it might also link into Gnosticism. You've got the God of Darkness, who constructs the world in which we live, and the God of Light, which has access to
Demiurge and what's the other term? Demiurge and I can't remember. Yeah,
I'll have to look it up again. But yes, so it's the antithesis of the God Machine.
Yeah, you finished ranting at the person there.
Not really.
God, how is she defending the Slash book?
Well, no, because all I said, and I'm probably not going to reply again, because I only replied like the once, and I was like, why am I even replying? Because there's actually other Hanagram fans on the post saying, oh yay, a Slash book, right? And basically, like I was saying, that the show became about Hanagram because of pandering to fan service. And I don't have a problem with the pairing itself, but they sold out and they killed everyone else's screen time in favor of that pairing. And there were so many loose ends in the finale.
I haven't seen it yet.
I'm not going to spoil it. Just that it's really bad storytelling because there's so much at the end that you don't know what happened to people. So it's just like, okay.
Yeah. Anyway, Changeling.
Yes.
Compared to Vampire, Sam.
Mm-hmm.
How does Changeling compare for you? Like, from completely player perspective on it.
Well, what exactly do you mean?
Well, what does it do?
It?
Do you feel it does differently to Vampire as a player experience? Because Vampire delivers a certain, well, I hope delivers kind of the creatures of the night, and we're doing all our social political intrigue while having, giving in to our dark, our hunger, while also trying to retain some element of humanity.
Well,
how does Changeling feel for you compared to that?
I don't know. Like, I feel like in Changeling, you have a lot more opportunity to maybe backstab people because the politics are even more complicated in a way. And
what with the pledge system?
Yeah. Which we didn't really go into that much.
Oh, I think the pledge system is.
We didn't go into the whole dream thing either. There's a lot of the powers that we didn't look at because it was so different to begin with. There's a lot of content, and which is good because I suppose every time you sort of play a game there, you could just explore the kind of magic stuff even more. But we were using the basics, I guess, weren't we? And people were still asking a lot of questions about, there's always a time we would stop in the game and be like, okay, what is this meant to do again? Or, what can this person do? Or things like that. I don't know though, I feel like with Changeling, you do come into it more as a noob, because again, people sort of know what to expect with a vampire game, and with Changeling, it's I think Changeling's actually good for whoever's running the game because you have a lot more creative opportunity with all the characters that you're coming up with for NPCs and things, but it's also quite difficult and probably heavy on the GM because they have to come up with so many different characters with so many different agendas, and their appearances are all different and they have a particular nature about them, whereas with vampires you have that, but also they're generally all going to be vampires, so it's you've got a starting point. Whereas, say the stuff you wrote for the Venice book, Changeling, those are all quite unique characters. And it's probably a bit harder on players as well to come up with an original character.
Yeah, I'm trying to think through my opinions on Changeling and what it does differently. I think with Vampire, if you don't know what to do, you can always default to my character's got to go out feeding. Mm-hmm. And Changeling has an element of that, which is they feed on emotions, but they can do it in so many different ways to get back, because they don't actually always have to get through game. They don't harvest glamour just by doing that. You can go into the hedge and harvest hedge fruit, which can be weird stuff anyway. And then you've got pledges that you may have made with people, so you gain glamour as a result of the way the weird operates, how fate operates, and that you're owed something. And the pledge system, I think, would have been good to have got into more if we'd done a longer game at that time, because I think it has more opportunity to be more powerful than the actual contract powers that changelings have, because you're literally trapping people into a specific set of requirements, which if they break them, quite hideous things can occur to them. Also, Changeling just has that element of like really kind of that childhood fear to it.
I've a friend of mine who I playing, he's the other player in the Vampire Chronicle I'm in, rates Changeling the Lost as the best World of Darkness line of all time. But he said that because there's a lot of themes of he kind of emphasizes more the theme of trauma and being a victim and being hunted. He said that it's quite a hard sell sometimes. You've got to find the right group who would be okay with some of those themes. I don't know if that's chimed with your own experience at all.
I don't think it's not always just finding people who want to play that. It's people who, I don't really want to say play it in the right way, but there are people who would not really understand and probably overuse like harmful stereotypes or something if they don't understand trauma in any way. So I mean, I don't think that was a problem for our group at all, but I also see how it might not be as appealing as something like Vampire, because with Vampire your character was human and they become something which is more powerful. In most cases they feel empowered by that, so it's almost like a wish fulfillment game in a way, whereas Changeling is not that, and it's more about being sort of downtrodden and rebuilding who you are after you come back, and finding sort of community with others of your kind afterwards. And I think that might not be as appealing to some people as just wish fulfillment.
Well, it's because the thing where Changeling gets a bit difficult and it's different to Vampire is like in it's all to do with trust, because Changelings don't trust anyone, because the last time they did, they were trapped into a pledge that took something from them. And if you play that and reinforce that, players ain't going to trust anyone unless they do pledges. And then they get caught in the whole thing that they do pledges for everything.
No, that's funny, because I found it the opposite with our group in Changeling. They would get into a lot of trouble by trusting people, even though
they could have done pledges and been all right.
They shouldn't have been. So I think that was kind of funny. Or they would trust the wrong people and not trust the kind of the red herring guys. They'd be like, I don't trust this guy, and he turns out to have nothing to do with it. He just sounds a bit creepy, that's all. When you throw red herrings in there like that.
Well, we in the long-running Vampire game I'm in, we managed to get on the wrong side of the only character who could be considered in any way, shape, or form a good guy, and he became our kind of mortal enemy. Which was interesting for the GM, but he did become the main antagonist for quite a long time. So it's kind of the ability to do that and make those wrong decisions, I think, gives a lot of it fleshes out the world and makes you feel like it is a collaborative story, as opposed to you're playing to what you should do.
Yeah. Mage, I've run a bit. Mage is the one I always really, really want to run. Again, it's like you move around post-op positions. It's like getting a gaming group together that you can trust is the hardest thing ever, because you can't just barrel charge into a new RPG group, because you might just end up with someone that you have to like dump out of your group for being problematic player. Mage, again, while Mage the Ascension was a really great game, and I played it a lot around about that like 1998, 1999. Well, I say played, run, and then I've played some. I just feel too post-millennial for it now. It just it feels too 90s, and I think that's a lot about what says a lot about New Order Darkness anyway.
It's really telling that you were really into Mage around when the Matrix came out, and
Yeah.
you're obviously really into techno Mage stuff.
Well, techno Mage stuff is still cool, but technology is not that cool in some respects. You know, I think there's something. I think Mage the Awakening, just there's something more interesting about it. I can't quite put my finger on what. I think the antagonists are more scary, because I got sick of the whole thing. Mage the Ascension was like, oh, we're the tradition mages and we're trying to fight for reality against the technocracy. It's like, but if you read the technocracy book, they're the good guys. They're trying to save humanity from everything, and yet they try the hardest, and then you get to modern day period now, where all their hard work is causing massive paradox effects with, like, you know, Ebola outbreaks and, you know, Wall Street crashing all the time and shit like that. And I'm just sick of the whole magic versus technology thing. And also, science is just magic. It's like, no, I don't want science to be magic. I prefer the kind of like what's hinted like in the stuff in like God Machine Chronicles, where if you peer too closely at science stuff and you get to the bleeding edges of like theoretical physics, it all falls apart, and then you find like the weird stuff. And some of it is magic, and some of it doesn't even fall into magic because it can't even be controlled either by science or magic. I prefer that kind of like,
there's a cosmic horror.
Cosmic horror, falling off the edge of the fucking cliff and finding that there is no way to stop yourself now, and that you've just you've opened the gates to it. And the antagonists in Mage the Awakening, I think the Exarchs I just find are far more sinister, because they are the gatekeepers. They've literally gone that, you know, they were humans, they ascended the thrones of reality, and then closed the doors behind them and gone, we'll harvest whatever energy we can take from all these humans trapped in there for our own existence in this higher reality where we get to do whatever we want, and everyone else is just stuck in the dirt. They're far more sinister compared to the technocracy or anything.
The quotation that comes to mind is, the opening to Lovecraft's The Call of Cthulhu. The most merciful thing in the world, I think, is the inability of the human mind to correlate all its contents. We live on a placid island of ignorance in the midst of black seas of infinity, and it was not meant that we should voyage far. The sciences, each straining its own direction, have hitherto harmed us little, but someday the piecing together of dissociated knowledge will open up such terrifying vistas of reality and of our frightful position therein, that we shall either go mad from the revelation or flee from the deadly light into the peace and safety of a new dark age. So that notion of kind of, yes, you have via science come to a much greater understanding of the universe, and it's awful. And then you had to live with that knowledge, and you can't put it back.
That resonates more with me now than ever, because it's like I've gone from being, oh yeah, I'm just doing my A levels in like physics and chemistry. I'm going to change the world, to I'm doing postdocs in science, and the world is a terrible, terrible place, and we are striving at the edges of it to improve it. And guess what? We're mostly still going to fuck it up.
Yep.
But at the same time, it's like, there's that the thing that also is that marvel where, you know, I'm doing chemical simulations on a computer, and it's like, but that's reality. That's meant to model pretty closely what actually happens on a level that we can't even look at. So, Mage is good. Sam, Mage, You want to play mage?
Yeah. I do.
What would you want to get out of it? Because obviously you've read a lot on like esoteric arts, witchcraft. You've got collections of books on those things. So how does that make you feel about mage?
I think I wouldn't really link mage to most of the stuff that I've read.
I think that's a good answer.
Because, yeah, I think, I mean, obviously because it's trying to be something different than stuff you see in, you know, paganism or Wicca, because it is a fantasy game.
Yeah.
I think if they did it that way, it would be kind of hokey in a way.
I think that's where Mage the Ascension in places falls down, is because you get the whole, because some of the let's be honest, some of the writers are fluffy pagans.
Yeah. Okay.
And very new agey, and I can say that because these are some of these writers, the same people behind Fading Sun,
word, I think.
And they have a very fluffy view on science as well, and that again turns up in the earlier Mage books. And Mage, the difference is like Mage the Ascension was reality is what you want to make of it, because it's the idea of consensual reality, and everyone has a way of viewing reality and how they practice magic and how it manifests. So like, yeah, I do it through chemical, quantum simulations, and what the point is, magic is enacted because to me, there's no difference between the simulation and reality. They're both sets of numbers from the same core principle. Whereas, like, say, in Mage the Ascension, you've also got the Verbena, who are your Wiccans doing magic that way. But ultimately, they're all doing magic, but it just the way they practice it is different. Whereas ultimately in Mage the Awakening, there is a true Gnostic Atlantean. They call it Atlantean, but they're getting looser with the term Atlantis now. A lot looser with it in second edition. They will be, about what magic is, and it's something far more primordial. And all the doing techno magic and paganism are all just tools to create the link between our reality and the higher supernal reality to draw magic down. So if you're a pagan or a Wiccan and you're doing that stuff, that's not doing the magic, it's just helping you channel it. Whereas in Mage the Awakening and Mage the Ascension, the Wiccans believe that what they're doing is doing the magic. But the funny thing is that, and I think Dave Brookshaw said this, is that Mage the Ascension is about a game where mages are awakening to the true nature of reality and the true nature of magic, because as you progress through the game, you actually discard your tools. You actually go, I don't need to be this Wiccan. I don't need to be this techno mage. I don't need to be this biosciences technocrat. You can choose whichever tools you want to do magic with. Whereas Mage the Awakening is more about ascension, because it's about breaking through the walls of reality to the higher levels so that you can take back humanity's divine birthright. Which is really funny when you put it into those terms, because when you realise that, you're just like, hey, yeah, Mage the Awakening is the better game. Yeah.
It might be quite interesting to see how they deal with the God Machine and the Angels of the God Machine, because...
Oh, yes. Dave Brookshaw apparently has theories on this, on how to link it all up.
Because one of my problems with Mage, one of the issues is that there was a mage in the vampire game who was a complete pain to deal with for years, is that they're kind of quite near the top end of power in the world of darkness. And I think having the God Machine and its angels as antagonists would be really good, because they also have a kind of an ability to twist reality but they've got the kind of all the back doors open to them. So that could be. I think for me, my concern was, I really want to have any horror or World of Darkness game. I always want, no matter how high the player power level is, to have antagonists that can outmatch them.
Yeah, Mage is an interesting one. I think again, Mage, the main horror is the hubris. So I think majority of the time the main antagonists have to be other mages because they represent that horror of you could go crazy and your magic just go. You just get too caught up in your own power more than even a vampire. But I think Mage is cool in that sense. And it meshes well with Demon because the comparison is that mages are, if you use the Matrix as your point of reference, mages are the hackers and demons are the agents. And actually in Demon the Fallen you're playing Agent Smith technically, and the angels are the normal agents. So Demon again is a weird one. So like as I said, with the different how you treat the soul and talk about it, Demon is you're something that isn't even human, that doesn't have a soul, trying to hide within reality as a human with different covers because you can switch between different identities and so forth. I don't have an idea yet for how to run Demon. I might, if I was to run it, I was thinking I might use their default setting of Berlin.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, and also the Dark Ages. They have a Cold War era in there, which I think might play quite nicely to the themes and might make it a bit easier to get into that Cold War atmosphere.
Well, I was going to say, because the reason with Berlin is just because I like setting games where I've actually been for any decent period of time, and I think Berlin I have at least a bit of a feel for what it's like, because Berlin's a weird little city. Like the center of it's really wide open because of just how it's being rebuilt, but then around the edges it's more built up, and then you've got the difference between East and West Berlin, and also it's got quite a distinct architecture in some places. Would you say, Sam? Berlin?
I didn't see a lot of it, so I think you've seen more of it.
Yeah.
Because I was mainly just in the financial district.
Yeah, that's a good point. Yeah.
With regards to Mage, it might be quite interesting. I don't know if you came across Unknown Armies, but I think
I know of it. I've not actually. I may have read some of it ages ago.
I've played it. It's quite interesting. It's a similar kind of concept that humans can discover that they can access this magic power. But in that, you have to kind of essentially become insane, and in so doing, your mind kind of unravels and it opens up access to these powers, which is potentially could be an interesting thing to look at alongside Mage. Very similar kind of feel between, it's basically your main antagonists are other people who've accessed these powers as well.
I have had a look at also Witchcraft, which is that by, I think that was by the same guys that made the Buffy RPG. I have a feeling it is. I've got that lurking somewhere as a PDF, I'm sure. Yeah.
Because one of my suggestions was at the moment I'm in the process of backing, receiving, and going to start running a variety of other non-World Darkness games. So there's Numenera. Don't think there's necessarily a huge amount of overlap, but Delta Green, Unknown Armies, and when Cult goes to Kickstarter, I'll be backing that as well. It might be quite interesting if we could see if there's a thematic parallel with one of the lines, especially a line that we maybe haven't run so much, that we could do a kind of compare and contrast.
Yeah. No, that's fairly easy to do. Because there's other horror RPG type stuff that I've got that I might run as a one shot at some point because they might be more useful to get people into playing, or Trail of Cthulhu. I bought the Humble Bundle deal, so I've got like pretty much all the core books for that.
I've played it. It got abandoned for a variety of reasons, but I did play in the Book Council London campaign, which up until the point we got to was absolutely fantastic. The reason I backed Delta Green, so I've got I think 9 books coming with that, because it just completely exploded at the end in terms of support, but that actually gives you a rationale by having an organization that fights the mythos of how, if you're playing a Lovecraftian game, a Call of Cthulhu style game, if someone's character dies, how you can bring in another character. Because quite often Call of Cthulhu is a case of people stumbling into the mythos and then trying to deal with it. And it's quite hard to see how you would then get someone from outside that group and draw them in and then convince them that, yes, you're going to give your life up now to fighting this.
Yeah. What's the other one that I've run that I've got Unhallowed Metropolis. That's always good for... That, to me, was kind of fun to do as kind of like tongue-in-cheek kind of horror roleplay, because the system is set up to allow players to... It basically nudges you to make your character do horrible things and become darker and more corrupt. And it's a zombie... It's a neo-Victorian alternative future post-apocalyptic zombie horror.
So, wow, how many subgenres can you fit in?
Yeah, well, the thing is that they're quite... The guys behind it are also guys that work at Promethean Press.
Oh, so, right, okay.
It's basically it's what they did on the side, and so it's like, you know, history veers off sometime around towards the end of the Victorian period, and there's a zombie outbreak, and then humanity recovers, and you get this new, you know, the city. Some of the cities get built up, but the rest of the land is completely given over to the zombies, and there's some weird kind of like blight that means you can't grow stuff and animals die, things like that. So it's all Victorian themed. It's not steampunk because it's not set in the... It's just not steampunk, and I'm sick of steampunk in that way. I'd quite happily play this. And then it's got a system where it's kind of like you make a deal with the devil. So you've got so many times you can do a re-roll or get out of jail free card kind of thing if your character dies. But if you do so, it makes them become corrupted in different ways, and it slowly manifests. And that was quite fun and amusing. And then there's the zombie horror aspect of it, because it can be quite easy, again, for people to run it where all you're doing is killing zombies. Like, you go here and you've got to kill all the zombies because of a zombie outbreak. Whereas really, the zombie horror part of it, the zombies are the backdrop to the actual character drama and other types of antagonists.
The Walking Dead springs to mind. So they create the context for the human drama, but the really awful stuff is what the humans do to each other, and kind of how they can get very, very corrupted by that the setting. I don't think we're going to struggle for things to discuss. I'm going to have to head off in a second because Laura has to get up for work at 6:00. Okay.
I was going to say, so basically show outline looks like game, like whatever game or book in a game line to talk about. Yeah. And whatever we choose as like media inspiration, something from like TV, film inspiration, and how we how we use that in a game, or if it's a really, really bad horror film, how do we rescue it? And how do
Is
we
there a
rescue
good idea
it?
buried in there?
It's always fun.
Yeah.
That might also be entire TV series and stuff, because, I mean, Sam, if it's something on Netflix, you've got more time than me to maybe push yourself through a Netflix series and go, oh, write some notes for us on it.
Yeah.
I
mean, a lot of the time I'm looking at series which are not supernatural in nature.
Yeah, that as well.
You know, taking ideas from them and how to structure
it's like
games.
It's like the classic Gossip Ghouls.
Yeah.
Gossip of Requiem. And then, so like with the first segment, because it might get rules heavy, like that doesn't really interest you much, does it, Sam? If we have to talk about that, so there's no point in boring you and having you there as like dead air, because there's no point with that. But obviously, then once we've done the media, the film, TV inspiration thing, then when we go back, we can talk about that game element, but less in the kind of. But we can totally drop all the mechanistic elements out and just talk about the ideas in more general gamer banter kind of way, and what other stuff we're doing. Sam had a great way of describing what Kingdom Death is. What's Kingdom Death, Sam? How did you describe it the other day? You described it as like Murder Narnia or something.
No, I said I'd said something Narnia, like
body horror Narnia.
Yeah, or something.
Basically. I'll be very excited.
I just call it fucked up Narnia.
Fucked up Narnia. That does have an RPG hopefully coming out.
What, fucked up Narnia?
Yeah.
I reckon you could kickstart that.
Yeah. It'd be really good to get Poots on to talk about and guys talk about Kingdom Death. Yeah, I think that's everything. So I will pull all the audio off this. I will see how much editing I need to get rid of noise. I don't think there's going to be actually that much, which is great. Obviously, if we need more voices on things, we've always got James to tap, because A, he's based in the UK. That means as little lag as possible. And B, he's played in either games I've run, or he's into World of Darkness in general. So, and he's into he's a games designer, so he can talk about games design in that way as well. So,
I mean, with regards to games designers, depending on, I think between us, we can probably tap up most of the industry.
Yeah.
So I've got most of the people behind Delta Green, for instance. I'm friends with on Facebook. Robin Laws, Kenneth Height.
Yeah.
I think you've got pretty much most of the World of Darkness crew. It'd be quite interesting to see if we could get any of the kind of horror computer game designers at some point, because we're seeing a kind of renaissance of computer RPGs at the moment. Maybe there's a way of tying them in.
I think there's an entire episode somewhere where we're going to have to wax lyrical about Silent Hill 2, the greatest horror RPG game going.
It is beautiful.
We actually need to buy it on the. I need to because I had it on the Xbox years and years ago, so I should really try and get a copy for the 360 or. Get it
Yeah, I've got a copy on. I think it came with Silent Hill 2 and 3 for 360, and it's superb. Apparently, there are some issues if you're using a really massive high definition screen that the fog effects are a bit flawed, and they're not really designed. So it might be one to, I don't know, maybe see if you can get on the PC on a PC monitor that's not quite that hides some of the you can see the joins, essentially. What again? Some Blu-rays kind of really emphasize the constructed nature of the films and breaks the magic.
Oh God, yeah. Cool. I think that's it. Is that
okay?
You happy with that? You got some homework? Yeah. She said.
Just before you head off, I would recommend with regards to Changeling, I think the best Changeling-esque film I've seen is called The Hallow by Corin Hardy, and he's been given the directorship for the remake of The Crow, and I don't really want to spoil anything, but it's very, very Changeling-esque, including elements of people being infected by the Hallow, essentially the creatures of the wood, but really, really amazing.
Have you watched that? Is that set in the US?
No, it's set in Ireland, I think.
Oh, okay, right. I was thinking of another one that's set in the US with the what was that called? That was really weird with the doctor moving in and realizing his wife is tied to this community they've moved to. It had some very Cthulhu elements to it and so forth.
There was the tall man had a bit of a changing feel to it.
Yes.
Pascal Laugier, Jessica Biel, I think, was in it.
Oh, okay. No, I'm thinking of another one.
That's also very good. I would recommend it. The Tall Man.
I was thinking of the Clive Owen one where his daughter in it, and they kind of have this shared nightmare almost of a being that tries to attack them. Too many different films. Can't think of their names right now. Cool. Yeah. Okay, I'll leave you to it then.
Excellent. Okay, and when are you thinking with regards to having a go at bashing out an episode?
I would give myself give me about a week I would say give me at least 2 or so weeks to delve back through Requiem 2nd edition.
Okay, I should
just
do
so
the
I
same.
can have a look and pick out things that I mostly didn't talk about on Darker Days, and mostly I'll listen back to my Darker Days review, because then that means it'll be a lot easier to get reacquainted with things. Yeah, cool.
Okay, excellent. Right, look forward to it.
Okay.
Cheers.
Okay.
Bye.